Hey everybody, this is Lauren Akins and welcome back to the Live and Love podcast. I'm getting to sit down each week with friends and family this season to talk about different areas of our lives where we get to live in love. And we're also going to get to share some new things with you, things you may not have known, even if you've read my book, Live in Love.
And I'm Annie F. Downs. I'm really glad to be back this season with Lauren and with y'all. This is such a special show. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and do that today. And if you get a chance, rate and review the show. Share it with your friends. Today's episode is so special, Lord. We get to talk about living in love in relationship with your mom and dad, who are like two of the most popular guests from last year. Your dad was on episode 1 called Live in Love and Family. Your mom was on episode 2, Live in Love and Adoption. And now we get them together.
It's going to be so much fun. I love my parents so much, and I think that y'all love this episode too. So we're going to get to sit down with my parents, Lisa and Steve, and we're going to talk about what it looks like for them and for me and my relationships to live in love and relationship. Hey y'all, so before we start the show, let's talk about today's sponsor of the podcast, Crew. It goes without saying that the Bible has changed so many of all of our lives. And so much of what living in love looks like for me and my family is a reflection of what we've all learned from the Bible. But imagine just for a second that you couldn't get a Bible. You couldn't hop on Amazon to order one, or you couldn't buy one at your local bookstore, or imagine you couldn't even afford one. Well, take it a step further and imagine that you aren't even allowed to have one. Honestly, I think it's so easy to forget that so many people all over the world simply can't just get a Bible. That's why we're so thrilled to partner with Crew. Crew is one of the largest evangelical organizations with over 25,000 missionaries in almost every country. Crew is giving Bibles around the world to people in their own heart language and sharing the hope of Jesus. And here is where they need your help. So for only $21 a month, you can provide 3 people with Bibles each and every month. When you sign up to provide 3 Bibles with a monthly gift of $21, as a thank you, Crew will provide meals to 5 hungry families through their humanitarian aid ministry. And you'll receive a copy of my book, Live in Love. All you have to do is text LIVE to 71326 to help today. Imagine how much this gift could really change someone's life. So text LIVE to 71326. That's LIVE to 71326 to help now. Or you can visit give.crew.org/live.
Well, for starters, Lauren, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yesterday you turned 33, right?
30.
Are you turning 32?
No, how old am I?
No one knows at this table?
Hold on.
32. I turned 32.
32.
Did I?
Yes.
What is this year?
It's 32. It's 32.
Okay, so you're 32.
I'm 32.
You're turning 32. Okay.
32. I'm confident in that answer.
And she's y'all's oldest.
Yes.
Correct? Yeah.
Yes.
So you've been a parent 32 years today.
Yeah, that's so weird. Steve, do you have comments?
Do you feel like you've been a parent
It's
for 32
relative.
years?
It's relative to him.
You probably do feel like you've been a parent for 32 years, especially
I don't.
helping me take care of my 3 that are currently walking the earth.
They're so sweet. You know how they say it's gone in the blink of an eye? It's gone. It's like 32 and it feels like 14 to me. Steve?
Feels like 32 to me.
Oh, I don't know. We had you early. For me, it was early. I was like 22.
That's early.
That's early. Got married at 20. Had you at 22 as I walked across the Lipscomb graduation stage. Yes.
Full on pregnant.
Yes. 4 months. I was 4 months pregnant.
Wow.
Then became a mom shortly after that and had the perfect child.
Lauren, congratulations.
And then we got married 2 months later.
Trying to make me feel good.
She was so easy. Like so easy. So happy birthday.
Thank you. I like to think Lennon has been my easy one.
Oh, yeah?
I'm like, maybe she'll have my very chill,
Laid back.
very laid back, not a lot bothers me.
Where'd that
Attitude.
come from? Which of them is that in you from? Or both?
Lisa, probably.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think they're both really comfortable in their own skin. And so I think I got that from both of them, and that helps me to not get upset easily, I think, because I'm like, well, this is just how I feel. And this is where I'm going, and this is what I'm doing, and I'm confident in that. But mom is definitely the more like, I think we said this last season, but dad's always like, what's it like, Lisa, with butterflies and rainbows just going through your mind at all times? Like the world is just such a easy place for you. But she really does have that mentality, I think, and I definitely pull from that. But I do also think that I also pull from dad's very realistic and down to earth and like a little more critically thinking of a mind. I think I'm a good blend. I see both of them in my life and in my marriage and in my parenting and in my friendships. And now, like, even, I guess you would call this my professional life, but like in the life that I'm doing now outside of my personal life, I see both of them for sure.
I agree.
Lauren has said this a couple of times. I would love for both of y'all to answer this. Has talked about how important it is. She hasn't said this directly, but what I keep hearing is how the people that are most up close to her are comfortable in their own skin. Do y'all feel like that's true about each of you? And what does that mean to you to be comfortable in your own skin?
Well, it means being truthful to yourself. Just don't hide anything. There's so many people I know that try to hide mistakes, hide their past. You don't have to embrace it, but you need to at least recognize it. Mm-hmm. And if you're just truthful with yourself and stare your mistakes in the face and own them, to me, that's being comfortable in your skin. When you're not comfortable in your skin, at least what I see from others is when they have deep, I'm not sure I can think of the right term, but they've got mistakes in the past. They've had mistakes in the past that they're ashamed of, maybe nobody knows about, or they're battling some sort of demon in their mind, and they don't talk to anybody about it. And that just was like a ticking time bomb. And I just don't see how you can be comfortable in your skin if you're not being truthful to yourself.
Wow.
Much less the people around you that could help you, that could care for you, and that love you, for instance. So that's what I think it is.
My turn.
Yeah.
For me, I don't know. I feel like I'm comfortable in my own skin more so like when I'm with my family, like this kind of, talking in front of an audience type thing. I can get uncomfortable, but I'm more of a shy person, I guess. But I do think it's better to be like an open book, because if you are an open book, comfortable in your own skin, then I just think life is easier. Mm-hmm. It just flows easier because you don't have to, not that you're going to tell every single thing to everybody that you run across, at least with your family. You be open and honest, and it's just, life is easier.
Lauren, I think those answers are so interesting. Do you value people who are comfortable with themselves because your parents are?
Probably because I think that's obviously the environment I was raised in. So I think I recognize that in other people quickly, because I'm so familiar with that environment. I definitely think that's what draws me to people, is where I feel like, oh, they're going to be exactly who they are. And just because you're comfortable in your own skin doesn't mean that you're a jerk and like force your opinions on other people or say things like inappropriately just because it enters your brain. But I think it's just them, like they were saying, just being honest about who you are and not being ashamed of who you are. But then also in being comfortable with your own skin, I think you're able to develop relationships, real relationships, better. Because I think that there aren't as many walls to have to break down to get to the true spirit of a person and the true heart of a person. And so I think that connection is just so much quicker. When you've got two people who are like, hey, this is who I am. Cool. And this is who you are. Great. Should we be friends? Totally. And I have friends who are very different from me. Lindsay, even, I think we do have a lot of similarities, but we're also very different in a lot of ways. But, that's one thing that drew me to her so much, is because she's definitely so comfortable in her own skin. I mean, she's exactly who she's going to be. And to me, it says like, hey, this is where I'm at. This is where I'm going. This is what I need. This is what I don't need. And it's just so much easier to be a friend or to be in a relationship with that person when you know those boundaries, or you know those expectations, or you know the needs and the wants, because then it just cuts out all the in between.
Right.
And it's just more real.
Yeah, for our friends listening, Lindsay is on episode 4 about friendship, so they can go back and hear that whole conversation. One of the things that y'all are maneuvering now is all your children are adults, right? Talk to me about how the relationship has shifted with your kids now that they're adults.
Well, it's fun. I mean, we've raised them, and, you know, you protect them and guide them and teach them everything you know and everything you wished that you had done differently or better. And then they're grown, and then it's like, wow, this is really fun.
Yeah.
Like, you get to do life together. You keep going. I don't know. They're, you know, they are our kids, but I love to get to go do trips with them, and just, we have so much fun, and everybody gets along. And
does everybody always get along?
No.
That's a big fat no.
It seems like it. The internet seems like y'all always get along.
No.
It's the butterflies and rainbows.
See, here it is again. Here it is in true fashion. We do not, I mean, we're not an
but we're not
argumentative
like-
family.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are.
But they're definitely,
Well,
Well, Steve is
he's always,
debating.
yes, he's, but as far as like fighting and arguing, no, that is not like a
that's what
consistent part of our family.
No.
But we definitely have those moments where there are disagreements, even with Tim and Paige and Rhett and Sonia and Macy and Tyler, Casey, Connor, Tyler or Grayson. I mean, just
Keep going.
But I mean, like, we've all had those moments where we're like, okay, we should probably, here's where I stand on this. I know this is where you stand. Can we hash this out? I feel like the people who butt heads the most in our family as an 18-person family is probably Paige and my dad.
Really?
Yes.
Why, Steve? What do y'all butt heads about?
Or just like,
Everybody just met Paige a couple episodes ago.
Yeah.
So tell us more.
let me say a little bit more. Like, by butting heads, I mean, like, she's always the one who will call him out. She's always the one that'll be like, Steve, come on, and he'll you know, push back and be like, no, you know, that's not what I meant. And she's like, well, that's what it sounded like that kind of butt heads. But sorry, Dad,
she's right. Yeah, and Paige is typically right every time, but I argue about it at first. I get defensive, and then I realize, you know, she's right and I'm wrong. Just admit it. So yeah, and going back to Lisa, you know, us being empty nesters, you know, her going through menopause and
So fun.
ooh, man, she used to be real happy-go-lucky, but she's kind of turned into a mini Steve Gregory, you know, that thinks critically on everything now. And part of that, I think, is the fact that the kids are gone and it's quiet, and I think that, you know, there's some withdrawals there from that, maybe a little bit of depression from it.
I have felt that way, like, just a little bit, which is really strange for me.
So I've spent, tried to spend a lot more time in it, and then worse for me, I'm busier than I've ever been in my life in business, and so I really have to focus on her, mentally think about it, so that she doesn't get left behind, so to speak. It's real quiet in the house. Now, when we have the grandkids spend the night, things like that, it seems like old times, you know, but it's been a challenge, although she's goes with Lauren and Tom a lot, you know, when they go on vacation. Sometimes I go and sometimes I don't, but that's helpful. So she has fun taking care of the grandkids.
I think that's an interesting part of marriage, so I've heard, is that, I mean, y'all are in a brand new season, it sounds like. And you're having to relearn some things, or newly learn some things about how to be married now that were different than 10 years ago.
Yes, absolutely. And I can't say any more than, you know, well, one thing we did was Lauren had us, gave us a gift to On Site.
Oh, yeah.
And that was, everybody was, even Paige was like, oh, he's going to hate it, but I just looked at it as another big adventure.
Did y'all go together? Did y'all do couples?
Yeah.
Oh,
Intensive couples therapy.
Yeah. How long ago?
I don't know, a few weeks ago. It was 4 days.
It's recent.
4 full days. But to me, it reminded me of caving in the past when I used to do a lot of caving. Except this adventure was caving in your brain. All the little recesses in your mind was so exciting to learn about, good and bad. So many things that I really hadn't thought about. There was nothing that just magically popped up that I'd never thought about, but it kind of helped dredge up things around the corner, some dark corner of my brain that, hey, you need to look at that, and so that was hugely helpful. And we've taken those lessons forward, and we're kind of self-study, so to speak, and we work together and spend time, little workbooks and things like that every week, just to enhance our marriage, especially because you don't have kids 24/7 that occupy your time. So that's been a big help. So thank you, Lauren, for doing that. I learned a lot.
I'm so happy that y'all used it.
Yeah.
Oh, my word.
Me and Thomas Drake gifted that to 3 couples in our family 3 Christmases ago.
We just now used it.
So it's been a gift that was given a long time ago, but just now used.
Yeah.
Actually, it was probably better now than it would have been 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Because we still had Grayson, and now it's completely quiet. So it really has been impactful for me, for sure.
Yeah. Lisa, talk about why to do marriage counseling in your 3rd decade. Some of us listening, me included, would think, well, don't y'all have it figured out in your 3rd decade? But I'm so inspired that y'all are still learning that actively.
Well, and you do. It is learning. And I don't know. I think we were so busy. Like I said, I got married to Steve at 20 and then had Lauren at 22 and just, had the kids and so busy with that. And then when Grayson left home, I don't know, it was really quiet and we still had fun. But I remember thinking, because I did get married so early, I was like, we didn't get to do a lot, go on trips and all that kind of, just the 2 of us, because I was, in school. And then he was working. And so we did tons of trips with our family. But then when the last one was out of the house, it was quiet. And I ended up embracing it because I thought, wait, I do. I remember we had so much fun together and we loved to do outdoor stuff together. And that's what, the initial attraction, but that's what drew us together. And our energy is the same on having fun and our first date was aerobatic airplanes. Right. And I loved that. And so I thought, well, we can do all this stuff that we didn't get to do, maybe rappelling or rock climbing or all that kind of thing. And then they gifted us this on-site thing and we went and we got all these tools and like Steve said, we're doing this workbook that's fun. I look forward to it. And it's even these little cards with different questions that you go through. You get to pick your card, the question that you want to talk about. And it just brings you together. It makes you learn more. It makes you learn things about your spouse that you didn't even know, and you've been married for 34 years.
Yeah.
So it's fun. It's fun.
As a professional pilot, I'm one of the lower time pilots with about 6,000 hours, but a lot of these guys I fly with have over 20,000. And one of the things we learn, we brief and debrief after every check ride every 6 months. And we're always learning. It doesn't matter how old you are and how many hours you have, you always find out you can do something better and you can learn something new and be a safer pilot. And my old instructor years ago in the 70s, he was an retired colonel in the Air Force, flew in World War II, and he told me, you learn something new every day, even if you learn you did not learn anything. I thought, that's a really good point. And the other thing he always said, I tell Lisa, one time I was on time at the flight service station for a early flight, checking the weather. And I said, I'm at 5 a.m. And I said, I'm on time. And he was yelling at me. He said, there's no such thing as on time. You're either early or you're late. And I thought, that's true, because time just keeps moving. There's no such thing as on time.
Right.
It doesn't matter how old you are or how long you've been married. You can always learn something new about each other that will make your marriage better and bless people around you and be a better image of the God that made you.
Lauren, what do you think hearing them talking about this?
Well, I imagine where me and Thomas Red are going to be when we're empty nesters. I'm like, what does that feel like? Just imagining where y'all are in a quiet house. I can't even fathom right now. It does make me excited for, I think it's easy to feel like as your relationships are consistent and the same and you're committed to that one person, you think there's a tendency for like the world to tell you that it gets boring and you need something new.
Yes.
But I think the opposite is true of the way God intended it. Like, I think if you are going to commit yourself to that person, then you commit yourself to the adventure of marriage. And that does mean growing together and trying new things. And it makes me excited for the adventure ahead, because the adventure we're in right now is beyond exhausting. But it's amazing, and we're happy, but we're tired. And it makes me excited for the adventures ahead. And just, I think when that temptation comes in of you get into a rut or you lose like the spirit of adventure in your marriage, like reminding yourself that this is not the way it was intended. It wasn't intended to be boring. And there are always, like Dad said, there are always new things you can learn about each other, about your marriage, and new avenues to explore. And that makes me really excited for, the next, what would that be for us? 20-ish years later. But it's inspiring. And I think a lot of marriages struggle with, well, what do we do now? Our kids are gone, and I don't even remember who we were before kids. And I'm not sure if we're going to have as much fun together. And I don't know if I like you. And, the things that, you hear a lot of marriages breaking up after the kids are out of the house. But I think what they have done is like really dig in. And I'm not saying that their marriage was like on the rocks by any means, but I do think they were in a place where they were like, well, what do we do now? And instead of just letting that define their marriage and where they are, they were able to be like, hey, well, let's dig in and let's figure out why this doesn't feel good, or why you're struggling here. And we may not feel the same way as we did 30 something years ago, but let's find those pieces that are still there and use those and build off those blocks and find this new adventure in our marriage. Even though it looks very different than the last 30 years, it can still be an adventure. And I just think that's really cool. And I wish more people would pursue that, because it's not easy. It's not easy to pursue that and stay committed, but I do admire their commitment to each other and to their marriage. And to the vows that they made to each other before God, before their friends and family, and to not take that lightly. And that's something that I hope Thomas Rhett and I do well going through the next however many years of our marriage. We will get right back to the show, I promise. But first, I wanted to share more about our incredible sponsor of this podcast, Modern Fertility. So the traditional guidance with fertility has been just wait and see. But now we have tools to help us plan for and track everything in our lives. Wellness, finances, careers, school. Why is fertility still a wait and see? Knowledge is power, and when you know more, you can make better decisions for your body, your health, and your future. There aren't many decisions bigger than having a baby, but for many women, their fertility is a big question mark. That's why Modern Fertility was created. It's an easy and affordable way to test your fertility hormones at home with a simple finger prick. Mail it in with a prepaid label and you'll get your personalized results within 10 days. Traditional testing with your doctor can cost over $1,000, but Modern Fertility gets the information you need at $159, a fraction of the price. And just by being a listener of our show, you can get $20 off your test when you go to modernfertility.com/liveinlove. Also, if you have an HSA or FSA, you can put those dollars towards Modern Fertility. You'll get insight into your hormone levels, how many eggs you have, and other important fertility factors. The results go deep into what every hormone means. And you can also talk one-on-one with a fertility nurse to review your results and options for next steps. If you're planning to start a family, or maybe even just one day in the future, clinically sound info about your body can help you make the decision that's right for you. Right now, Modern Fertility is offering our listeners $20 off the test when you go to modernfertility.com/liveinlove. That means your test will only cost $139 instead of the several hundred or even $1,000+ it could cost at a doctor's office. Get your $20 off your fertility test when you go to modernfertility.com/liveinlove. That's modernfertility.com/liveinlove.
As the non-married person at the table, do you really think about your vows? Is that something that you think about actively during your marriage?
Yeah, I do. I got the anniversary of my wedding in my ring, and I look at it often and remind myself of. Lisa did that because she knows I can't remember dates very well. And so I do, for sure. I think it's important. And Lauren was talking about being bored, times being boring. In my opinion, you should embrace the boredom. That's when you learn to meditate, learn to think about God, learn to read the Bible, and think about it, and how it may apply to you. All the senses you have: sight, sound, touch, smell, all in nature. I've learned I don't run anymore because I've got so many fake joints, but I'll walk and I won't listen to anything on the radio or listen to recordings. I just listen to nature as I walk. So there is an advantage there to learn to embrace the boredom, because you can actually draw closer to God and get rid of all the noise in your mind in society today with all the social media. And I think that's a magical way to get closer to God. And then speaking of magic, Lauren giving us the gift of on-site. There's a company on the business side in our business in aviation that we use that is like a coach, like a business coach, and they're called Petra. I think they're down in Franklin, and there's a book called Scaling Up that's about how to build a business. And one of the things they taught me that's been really good, that I've kind of connected all the dots when we went to on-site, was you get comfortable in your own skin, so to speak, or get comfortable in this one little area in your marriage, and then there's a big change. All the kids are gone. And they're always saying you need to get outside your comfort zone and get into an area that's a little bit more uncomfortable. So get outside your comfort zone, and that's where you experience the magic, they call it. And it's true. Us going through even now, since we got back from on-site, we'll talk about things that are uncomfortable for each of us, that I know Lisa's right and I need to address it. For instance, something that, one of my faults. But just to sit there and listen to her talk about it and accept it and go, all right, I can do better on that, So that's been really good, because it has created a lot more magic in the marriage in that regard.
Yeah.
To get outside your comfort zone.
Yeah. Lisa, will you talk about how I would imagine the people I've been in relationship with for 30 plus years, there's still new things about them all the time. For our friends that are newly married, what's it like to still be getting to know new pieces of someone 30 years into the marriage? Or are there new pieces?
Well, I wouldn't say new pieces. There's pieces that I know more about, that we can, like different things that we explored at on-site, but that I understand him better. So I know how to approach a subject or something, or how to help with not letting him, get wound up really quick, because he can get wound up real quick. And they just have given you tools to not let that happen. And so being married for 34 years, and I remember thinking, wow, we do have fun together. Like, this is going to be awesome, because, I just loved being around him. Like he's still my favorite person.
Yeah.
And I always want to do stuff I will go anywhere with him anytime just because I like to be with him. But there's different things that we have learned how to deal with better in our characteristics and just how our makeup. But I just want to keep us healthy so that we can keep doing life good together and be there for our kids and grandkids, but still carve out a good section of time for he and I to get to do fun stuff.
Yeah. Do you feel like you are still learning new pieces of Thomas Rhett, or is it more like that? Because y'all have been in relationships since you were for 20 years.
Yeah. No, there are just pieces of him that I have a deeper understanding of. Like, I can always know him a little bit better. I don't think there's anything that's like earth-shattering, like, whoa, I didn't know that you were like this. But there are definitely pieces that I'm like, I didn't realize that meant that much to you. Or I didn't realize that's as sensitive of a subject to you as it really is, for instance. But we're constantly learning each other. It may not be something totally new, but you can always get to know somebody better and better. I mean, you can always get to know yourself better and better.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the same is true for marriage. And I think that's crucial to a successful relationship is continuing to grow and move forward in that and not just being like, well, we figured out enough. We'll just stop there and quit working on it.
Yeah. Steve and Lisa, tell me what y'all know about God from now compared to when you were in Lauren and Thomas Rhett's spot of the kids are little running around. So in the last 25 years, what do you know about God that you didn't know when the kids were little?
I know that for me, spending more time with God, that's the best thing for me. And Lauren's really good about this. And I was not like this when they were growing up. She gets up really early and just spends time in the Word. I didn't do that. I did it, later throughout the day. But now that's hugely important. I mean, God has always been there for me, like in miraculous ways. Just always been there. Steve's, I don't know how you feel about that.
I have learned that I used to spend a lot of time analyzing, worrying over decisions to make sure the kids, because Lisa stayed at home and raised the three children, and I flew a lot at the time and also worked as a petroleum engineer. Or actually, at that point, I was an environmental engineer. It was usually about money, trying to make ends meet, and also save and make sure, that, we were saving towards retirement and all that. And I really worried so much about it. I'd pray a lot about it because I learned that, as I'd mentioned before, before I met Lisa, I learned how to pray really good. But I should have quit analyzing once I had a solution, keep going back over it, looking for maybe some sort of little error that I needed to readdress, because 30 years later, 35 years later, in my life, I realized when I look back that everything that I'd planned to do typically happened, but there were several times when it didn't, and I just, what did I do wrong? And I fretted about it. And if I had just let it go, because Lisa's taught me over and over again, she reminds me, worry about the things you can control and let go of the ones you can't. Well, I couldn't do it. I just figured there's some way I could control it. And those times when it didn't go the way I thought it would, I look back now, 30 years later, and they worked out actually better as opposed to what I thought should have happened.
Wow.
It was a much better solution, and I just should have I wasted so much time doing that. And so that was a big thing about me, that I've learned about God is if you really stay focused on Him, just focus on the things you can't control and let the rest of it put it in His lap and be done with it. And I still am learning that lesson, but that's the biggie for me over the last 30 years.
Yeah. Lisa, why is that easy for you? The way he retells it, it sounds like it's easy for you to let go of what you can't control.
Well, because I know I can't control it. I'll quit something a lot easier than he will. I don't know. I think it's just my personality for one, but I also know that it's, like when people lose things in the house, I'm like, just look for it as much as you can. And then when you've looked everywhere you can think to look and there's nowhere else, let it go. Let it go. It'll show up. And it always does.
Mm-hmm.
And
a friend of mine just lost her engagement ring in her house.
Ooh. Has she found it yet?
Nope. So I'm going to call her today and say,
let it go.
Let it go.
Pray about it. Pray. She can pray. She knows it's in her house.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
She'll find it. Unless she has a dog or animal that ate it.
That's what, but they've been checking all that too. So they've been trying.
Oh, bless.
Okay. But yeah, I think it's my personality, but also I know that when I've tried to force something to happen, which is not very often, but it just didn't work out well. And then I only get angry and frustrated. So I just let it go and pray about it if I've tried everything. And then it typically works out really well.
How much has prayer kept y'all together?
Oh,
huge.
Yeah.
It,
big.
It, in my opinion, is the
everything.
Main reason that people that don't, you've got to read the Bible, and that's how God talks to you, and you got to talk back to Him and pray to Him and talk to Him and think about Him. If you're not doing that, these people that are able to stay married, I'm not sure they're happy. I don't know. I'm sure there's some exceptions to the rule, but I think there's so many people go through life and are never happy in their marriage, but they're missing the big ingredient, and that is God, and so I think it's huge. The prayer is what keeps you together.
It's your constant.
Yeah.
For me, I pray about everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's good at that.
But little bitty things too.
Mm-hmm.
I think just being a mechanical engineer, petroleum engineer, we do tend to overanalyze things, or I do, and where she can just drop something and just pray about it, I'm thinking I can solve this, and that becomes a big hindrance to me.
Lauren, how have you seen prayer keep you and TR together?
We talked about this last season too, but in the seasons of our marriage where we weren't healthy and I didn't like him and he did, and the reverse is probably true. He probably did not like me either. Staying in that commitment and like really leaning on the Lord in that and being like, hey, marriage is not fun right now. And it's not something that I want to put my energy toward. In fact, I want to walk away from it. But knowing that the truth, that's not what the Lord has for us, to walk away from each other and leaning into that and being like, I know what is true about you, and that you say what we have committed to, and we are not to walk away from. So can you help us come back together to where we are in a place where we're able to like to be around each other and to want to pursue each other? Granted, there was a lot of outside factors that were playing into our marriage at that point, but it was a season that I wasn't talking about it to a lot of people, and we definitely weren't talking about it publicly, but in our hearts and in our home, we were like, we just have got to come back and bring this before the Lord and have Him heal this in us. And He did. And just having the faith that what He has for your marriage is good, and trusting that, and even in the hard parts, when it doesn't feel good to be married, or it doesn't feel good to be sitting next to that person, or the hard conversations are really hard, just leaning into that faith of like, I know He's going to bring us through this. I don't know when He's going to bring us through, and I don't know how it's going to happen, but He is God, and He created our marriage. He created our love. He created each other. And I know that what He has for us is good. So just trusting in that, even when you feel like there's not a whole lot to look forward to in that moment. Yeah. When I think back over our marriage, that was probably the most crucial time of prayer for our marriage. And then He did bring us back around. And I do think now we're probably, pretty soon it will be 10 years next October. And I think we're healthier than ever in our marriage. And that's a really cool place to be. But it wasn't without going through some really dark valleys at some point in our marriage. But He brought us through.
But that's where your marriage vows come back in, is that's one of the things that I married some of these kids in past years. I remind them that turn around and look at all these people you're here with now, and you're promising in front of all your friends and family and God that you're going to stay together through thick or thin. And, you know, that's why it's so important to remember why you got married and what you committed to. And her talking about going through dark valleys, I think she's more like me, and Tom is more like Lisa, I think Tom has more estrogen, you know, than a typical man does.
Oh, boy.
I think it's great.
He is very sensitive.
Yeah. I think it's fabulous. I think a lot of men need to have take maybe estrogen shots or something. And
boy.
But I've learned that as I've gotten older, you know, testosterone drops, estrogen rises. I'll cry at the drop of a hat at anything now. But I think that's a wonderful trait in him because he's so attentive to Lauren. And where Lauren will bark and bite back at him, she's kind of the hard hammer, and he's a soft metal that she's banging against, but he gives with her. And you couldn't have a better pair in that regard. And even when he grew up, you know, over at our house, he was just such a conscientious kid that was always, you know, worried about someone else. And I think they're made for each other. It's a great trait in him. But again, that's why those two got married.
Taking a quick break to tell you that this podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. If there are things going on in your life that are causing you to feel stuck or interfering with your health and happiness, know you're not alone. I've found counseling to be super helpful in seasons like that, and so many of our friends have too. And BetterHelp is here for you. The best way to think about therapy is through a bunch of analogies. We get oil changes for our cars to prevent bigger issues down the road. We see the doctor and go to the gym to take care of our bodies to prevent injury and disease. And we do chores regularly to avoid a messy house. Well, going to therapy is like all of the above. It's routine maintenance for your mental and emotional wellness to prevent bigger issues down the road. Going to therapy doesn't mean something's wrong with you. It means you're investing in yourself to keep your mind healthy. And it's really important that you connect with and have a really great therapeutic match with your counselor. So BetterHelp makes it easy and free to change if you need to. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. Why invest in everything else and not your mind? This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and Live and Love listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/liveandlove. That's BetterHelp.com/liveandlove.
For the people that are listening that are in a real valley in their marriage, will you give them some hope of why to hang on and how to get through?
Thinking back through the valley that Thomas Rhett and I went through, like, I remember having thoughts of like, and I believe this was the enemy. I was letting the enemy speak into my life, but like the thoughts that I had were, we got married too fast. We've fallen out of love with each other. There's too much in the world for us to be happy. That we have the world at our fingertips. There are other things we could pursue if we wanted to that would make us happy now. And that's what the world tells us, right? Is like, you need to be happy now. You deserve happiness now. And if you're not happy, quit.
Go find it.
Yeah,
right.
Get out of it. If you know the Jesus I know, that's not what he preached. That's not what he says to us now. He promises that we're going to go through the valleys. He promises us we're going to go through the valleys. And I think in that moment, you have to be so rooted in truth. And that means having the people around you speaking that truth into you, whether it's your parents that are modeling that well for you, or maybe your parents didn't model that well, but now they're saying, hey, I messed this up. Pay attention. Like, don't do the same thing I did. Or friends, or whatever it may be. But making sure that you're listening to truth. If you're listening to that truth, have the courage to do what the truth is telling you to do. And I think what I would say to that person or those people is, it's not going to be fun. In fact, it's going to be really hard. And there are going to be times where you're going to be like, I absolutely don't want to do this. This is the last thing I want to be doing right now. But coming through the other side of that valley and not listening to the lies of the world, I can say personally that there is no other person in the entire world that I would choose to be in that valley with me than Thomas Rhett, humanly. Yeah. Obviously, right. I think if I could choose to have the Lord intervene on my behalf, I would choose him first. Right. But as a human, there is no other person that I trust more, because I know he's seen me in my darkest moments, and he still chooses to love me. He still chooses to respect me. He's still that safe place for me. And he loves me well enough to have the patience to let me figure out, the things that I've done wrong or the things I can do better with, and vice versa. But what we have now, and we're not even 10 years in, but what we have now is so rock solid because of the work that Jesus has done in our relationship. I feel like so much could come up against us, and we're going to choose each other because we've been through the valleys, and we're like, hey, even though that wasn't fun, look at what happened because we chose to stay committed, and we chose to commit to prayer and have the people around us who are rooted in truth speak into our marriage and encourage us and pray with us and for us. And look where it brought us. I mean, I feel like we are on our way over the next however many years we're together of having one of those relationships in movies, or that you see like people who have been married for 50 years, that they're like, these people have been such a rock solid pair that the Lord has used. And I feel like the reason he's able to use people like that is because these people have stayed committed to each other and to him. And he has used that for his glory and to encourage other people and to love other people well. And I think I would like to say it will get better, but you've got to stay committed to each other and most importantly to the Lord. That was a very long-winded answer.
It's a great answer. Sorry. No, it's great. Lisa, what do you think?
I 100% agree with everything that she said. And I can't add a lot to that. But think back, like when you first started dating, like what drew you to that person, and the fun that you had, and what was the spark? What made you want to keep being around them and that type of thing? Because if you can think back then and think how you felt and where you were, and a lot of times it will help, like rekindle how you really felt when you first met this person and why you even were interested in them in the first place. God is the number one point in the commitment, everything that she said on the commitment. And it is a choice. You do choose every day, or it's every day. You choose how you want to be and how you want to love. And I think that the better connected you are with God, and you're more grounded in him and listening to him and knowing the truth and your promise. You promised something.
You promised.
And if there's, I know even for people that, I know a couple in particular that really just did not want to do anything to fix their marriage at all, but they both had committed, and God was the key. So for me and for Steve and Lauren and all of our kids, God's got to be the center point in the commitment, and it is a promise.
For me, again, it's read the Bible, pray. The first thing you got to do is fix yourself in a marriage. And by fixing yourself, you go a long ways towards that in prayer, because it forces you to look at yourself in a critical fashion. Read the Bible, you see example of people that did things wrong and did them right, and you can see parallels in your life. And don't be afraid to go ask for help. As a man, that's one of the things, or stubborn individual I am in that regard, not asking for help a lot of times, but you shouldn't be afraid of doing that. So you got to fix yourself. Again, I think I've mentioned before, if I could sum the whole 66 books of the Bible up into one word, it'd be love, L-O-V-E. And one of the big tenets of it is that you should treat others like you want them to treat you. Well, your wife, first husband, is right there next to you. You should be treating them like you want to be treated. So you can't have contempt for them. You can't be belligerent when you blow a fuse. You've got to build them up because they've got the same faults that you do, more than likely. And if you can forgive yourself of those faults, you need to be able to forgive them. So that's a huge step in the right direction. Finally, Lauren mentioned valley. Well, the definition of valley is there's a low spot in between two high ridges. Well, just keep walking and don't give up, because if you keep walking, take one step in front of the other, you'll eventually climb up the other side of that ridge, out of that valley, into the sunshine. So don't quit. Don't give up, because it will get better.
So how do you live every day? What does it look like for you in your relationship with Mom to live that love out every day?
Well, it helps for me to walk into my office because one of our core values is the candle of love. And, that came from Tim Bess, my good friend that I talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Sometimes he called it, if he was in a feisty mood, he called it the love candle. But, but the candle of love means that I'm going to treat everybody like I want them to treat me. That to me is the overarching value of all the other core values we have. And because of that, I'm always reminded when I get in an argument with Lisa or with Bob Percy or Berta Weston, the guys I work with, or Bob Vomuth or Chris
Paige.
or Paige. I'm always remembering in, and I'll always really focus on when we get done with our disagreements, that I'll give them a hug and tell them I love them. Now, Lisa, it's harder for me to do it with her. It's kind of interesting just because I don't know, I'm still trying to figure out why sometimes I resist, but I kind of stonewall, which is a bad thing in a marriage. Don't do that either. That's a certain way to head towards divorce. But in the end, when you end an argument or a disagreement with "I love you," it just makes things so much better. It's so easy to take your medicine when you hear that. And so, Lisa hugging me and telling me she loves me really disarms me. And so I've learned a lot of that from her. But that's how I live it every day.
Mom?
I love to love. I love people.
I'm glad you say that about yourself. That is really true. It feels like you love to love.
I can't help it.
Yeah.
I can't help it. It's so crazy because I was looking back over on Instagram messages last night, and a friend of mine, and I don't even remember this, but her name's Helen. Well, it was Helen Hanks. Now it's Helen Nicholson. But she wrote me in Instagram because we were just kind of chatting back and forth, and she said, "I just want you to know that when I left home for college and went to ACU, Abilene Christian," she said, "my mom couldn't go with me, and so my dad took me." And she said, he just kind of, took me in, dropped me off, and, because dads just don't always know. And so she said, I was doing everything by myself, and she said, I didn't have like the cute stuff. And she said, I thought, I'm just going to go walk down the hall. And she didn't know anybody. So she's walking down the hall in our dorm. And she said, I walked past your room, and there was like the cute, the bedspread and the papers that you had lined your drawers with. And she said, I kind of walked a little bit slow, and you looked up, and I stopped at your door. And she said, you immediately invited me in, didn't know who I was, started talking to me, introduced me to all of your friends, and connected me with all of these people that I am still best friends with to this day. And so I had forgotten that in my major social work, so I love people and connecting and helping. And so I think that's just part of who I am. And I like everybody to get along. But with Steve, he and I, if we're doing anything and we're having a disagreement, and I do just hug him. I'll just walk up and hug him, and it stops. It stops everything.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's magic. Yeah. Everything's fine after that. Not that that's going to be the cure-all for everyone, but it really does disarm him. And I think you could use that in a lot of different things in your life with others. But I love people, and I love to help people, and I love to love.
This episode has been such a gift. I think it's going to help so many people. Lauren, how do you live in love? Watching what they've modeled for you for 32 years. Happy birthday. And and now almost 10 years into your marriage with TR. How do you live in love in that relationship?
For me recently, it has been almost like humbling myself with my husband and recognizing when I'm wrong and apologizing for that. Or even if it's something that I still feel strongly about, but realize that I've hurt him in whatever that conversation may be, like recognizing where I may have hurt his heart in some of the things I said or the way that I handled the situation, and apologizing for that and hoping that he has the grace for me to receive that and forgive me. And also, I think in the season that I'm in, where I'm so exhausted so much of the time, and where I tend to feel sorry for myself because he's on the road and I'm home with the kids a lot and pregnant and all the things that I've got going on at home. When he comes home, so much of me just wants to hand the kids over to him and be like, I'm out for a little bit. You come in and be dad. But choosing to recognize that he also has been working. It just looks a little bit different. And he's coming off of the road, also exhausted. And I feel like lately the Lord has really challenged me to continue to serve him even through my exhaustion. And whereas he probably has gotten to sleep a whole lot more than I have, choosing to love him well in that and showing my love and appreciation for him and what he does for our family and for our marriage, and in serving him even in that exhaustion, and choosing to not be like, well, I'm really exhausted. Let me tell you all the things that I just did over the last 3 days. But instead being like, we're so happy you're home. Let me fix this food for you. Let me help you. You go downstairs and work out. I've got the kids for another hour. Or, the things that he loves to do, and me as a wife, the things that I'm able to do to love him well, even though all I want to do is for him to let me put my feet up and rub my shoulders.
Does that too sometimes, right?
He does that so often, but I think it's so easy for me to be like, you're right. I've been with the kids for 4 whole days by myself. I'm tired. I'm growing another human right now. Let me put my feet up. You serve me a plate of food. But I know that those acts of service speak volumes to him. And so that is a way that I think I'm able to love him well, is even in those times where he would 1000% just be like, no, let me do this for you. Me choosing to not tell him how tired I actually am and just continue to serve him in that has been really cool. And I do feel like through that exhaustion, when I still serve him in that and listen where the Lord kind of gives me those nudges, it's almost like the exhaustion I did feel, all of a sudden I have a little bit of a renewed energy. Wow. And I think it's because that's who Jesus says that he was, is that he came to serve, not to be served, but he came to serve. And we're supposed to model that, especially in our marriage. And I think Thomas Rhett does that so well for me. Since we were in high school, he's always done things for me to make me feel loved and to show me how much he appreciates and cares for me. And now I think it being so much harder in my exhaustion right now, it speaks even more volumes that I make sure to do that for him. And it's been really cool to watch that transition and kind of submit to that servanthood in a marriage, and to swallow my pride and to not listen to what the world would say. No, you deserve this. You should take that. It's been a really cool thing to watch the Lord do in our relationship.
It's beautiful. Steve, you got any other nuggets for us? I love it.
No.
Okay. Good answer. Good answer.
Hey y'all, just a quick reminder not to forget to partner with our friends at Crew. For only $21 a month, you can provide 3 people with Bibles each and every month. And when you sign up to provide 3 Bibles with a monthly gift of $21, as a thank you, Crew will provide meals to 5 hungry families through their humanitarian aid ministry. And you'll receive a copy of my book, Live in Love. All you have to do is text LIVE to 71326 to help today. Imagine how much this gift really could change someone's life. So text LIVE to 71326. That's LIVE to 71326 to help now. Or you can visit give.crew.org/live. Thank y'all so much for listening. I have had so much fun in these conversations, getting to share with you what it looks like for us to live in love. And just a reminder that you can pick up your copy of my book, Live in Love, if you haven't yet. And I really hope that you'll join us for our next episode of the Live in Love podcast, where we're going to get to talk about what it means to live in love in health.